Tell me who you are.
Hi, my name is Desiree. I'm an alcoholic.
What's your sobriety date, Desiree?
10/23/2002.
And do people always call you Desiree, or
I also go by Desi. Mainly, I go by Desi.
are you from Seattle, or how
I was
did
born
you?
in Everett. Yeah, born and raised in this area.
And when did I ask you your sobriety date already?
Yeah,
Okay, what was it? I wasn't listening.
October 23rd, 2002.
Oh wow, okay, yeah, that sounds really good. So where were you when you got sober? Was it in Everett or was it in Seattle?
Yeah, I was attending meetings in the Everett area. I've been Seattle based more so the last 10 years.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story? What it was like, what it's like now?
Sure. So I started drinking early age, 11 on, and it was casual. It was great. I had fantastic grades. And it wasn't necessarily on my agenda of things to do was to drink. I remember not thinking I would ever do that, but um, I had the sip of my dad's beer, getting him a can from the fridge when I was 4, and um, I think it seemed fine, even though I did witness some alcoholism growing up, definitely. So that progressed for me in the matter of a year or two. Um, there were so many other things going on in my life at the time that, of course, I didn't recognize or have the energy to even deal with the addiction side because it was pretty normalized as well. And it wasn't showing up for me in places that really alarmed too many people. And by the time it did show up, I had all the excuses. And I think people in my family assumed I was just going to be okay.
When did it start? How old were you when it started showing up, and what were the things that were tells?
I ran away from home, for little excursions. I started to just be a different young lady pretty soon after picking up that first drink. And I started to think I was more of an adult than I was at all. And then the crowd that I was with, we had queer ideas of fun. That's not, I think, what the big book is saying when they mention that line. But um, yeah, I had like two sides going on. One was like the good girl in school, and the other is the delinquent
Was
off
this high school
hours,
or middle school?
middle school. Yeah. And some of my violence came out that first year. Um, kind of some anger inside, you know. Um, if there was like a disagreement or something at school, I would settle it with anger. Get in trouble. Sixth grade and seventh grade. In the seventh grade, I ended up in IOP.
Okay.
So it showed up, but I was doing okay. There was, like I mentioned, a lot of kind of chaos in my family. So it really wasn't about me. And that was perfect fuel to just keep sneaking and drinking. And anyway, so about 13, 14, I started to think I had a problem.
Mm-hmm.
I started to think this is going the wrong direction for me. And I don't really want to do this, but I was kind of committed. And I think it was around that time that the drink sort of started to take a hold of me because I would find myself in situations and just feel like it was who I was. And um, I'll go to greater lengths, you know. And those were the times I started to really hurt my mom and I started to really bother people. Um, and I would clean up my act a little bit. I really wanted to clean up my act. So yeah, the what it was like is just not pretty. I did not come into this program like with much going on for myself. And that did, I think, help me to take on the idea that I have to change everything and that this is going to be a commitment and to give that a shot. I had became also a drug addict, and I kind of would play the two against myself in my head, alcoholic or a drug addict. meaning like what it looked like was like, I found these other mind and mood altering substances, and I forgot that I was an alcoholic. And by the time that those ran their course, I thought, I'll just drink normal. It's fine. I'll just drink. I'm like 15, 16. Um, and then the problem was I got drunk. And so, what would happen when I got drunk and I wake up in another county and like just breaking hearts and really starting to fail in school. And with that aptitude I had, boy, I really thought I was going to be okay. And
Mm-hmm.
what happened, getting sober at 17, I did not jump right into school. I mean, got a GED, lickety split, but I have gone many years in college and it's been very difficult as a result of the chaos and the need for my recovery and what that looks like day to day. And just experiencing life sober is a completely different ballgame than before I was an alcoholic.
So you first came to AA as a 17-year-old?
Yeah, I first came to AA. I witnessed a couple people get clean one and got sober the other, unbeknownst to me. So I was sort of a product of a couple different people's 12 steps. And that just showed me the program. I was never talked down to. I was never really personally invited to a meeting for the sake of a meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I just got in a car one time. I wound up at the end of a meeting. And the second time was my brother. And this was in a 6-month span. They didn't know. This wasn't anyone in cahoots. This was just my brother had gotten sober and he was going to play cards. But before that, he did show me like this notebook he was carrying around. And I asked to read it, and it was a story of him like peeing himself because he was drunk. It was his first step. And I just really kind of laughed it off and gave it back to him, and he had to go and he went to play cards. And I just wanted to see, be with my brother. So I just, oh yeah, I'll go play cards or whatever. And there was a meeting upstairs. That day. I'd never been to that place ever before. And so those are kind of my first couple of meeting experiences. I think there's definitely some God shots in there for me, especially at the time, at the front end of that 6 months, that first meeting, I lived 30 miles north of Everett, and Everett's where I got sober. So after I had been to 18th and Baker in North Everett, I think this is the timeline. So towards the tail end of that 6 months, I had been to both of those meetings and I had really been white knuckling it again. And I really thought, okay, we moved to Everett now. What would I do if I wasn't going to drink today? I thought my grand thought was to go to the library. I don't know how that was going to help, but
Sounded good.
It sounded great. I walked up the road. I recognized that building of that first meeting, and I went inside, and there was a nooner that day. There was some words on the door, and this 18-year-old woman who was very pregnant, on her way to prison, invited me out after the meeting. She welcomed me. I met her sponsor that day, went to the movies with her and a couple of her friends, guy friends. And I didn't get sober off of that, but these are my introductions to these rooms. And that's what really happened for me was I got a glimpse of, I think, people living this program. And it showed me that it was possible, and it wasn't so much about the external guilt and shame as much as my internal drive to not die of this disease. Right. That's where I was headed.
Now, you mentioned a brother. Is he older than you?
Yeah, he's a bit older. We actually had drank together, but he's like 6 years older than me, 7.
Any other siblings?
We have another older brother, but it's mainly the 3 of us. I have some other half siblings as well, okay, but we didn't grow up together.
Any of them with our problem?
Maybe one, but I'm really happy with how well they seem to be doing.
And you say your brother, was he a big influence on you? Or maybe this isn't so bad, or you saw him get better perhaps?
I didn't really see him get better right away. But he had done some time in prison when I was a small kid, when I was 10. He did 3 years as a 17-year-old. Walla Walla. And he was always that kind of like light. Like when he got out of prison, he came to visit me and he would buy me things. He bought me a bike. He taught me some workouts. He, I think, tried to be that role model. But when it came to him drinking again, I think that took him away from our family. And like I said, at one point I had actually used with him.
Right.
So
Family tradition.
yeah,
Same in my family.
yeah, something like you're old enough, or just I don't know why he thought that was cool, but it's cool, man.
We go crazy trying to figure out what's going on in one of our heads.
Yeah, yeah.
So what you said at first, you didn't just jump into AA full head
Mm-mm.
first, both feet, whatever you want to say.
Mm-mm.
What happened to make you think this was a lifestyle for you?
I did one of their prayers, and I ended up in the psych ward. That kind of put a cap on it for me.
What do you mean you did one of their prayers?
You know that suggestion to pray for someone for 2 weeks? I did that. I didn't take the program, but I just did some suggestion from the meeting. And I think I started to like concede that like this will take a long time. This is going to take me 5 years.
Were you toxic when you said this prayer?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, absolutely.
And then that led to you going to the psych ward because
That's
what?
how that's how I perceive it. Because the more that this program became real to me, the more insane it sounded to me. The greater the undertaking.
Yeah.
The longer that I sat with this thing, it was like, ooh, you can't shake that. Once you know, you can't not know. Unless you pour a lot of booze on it. And I did drink before that experience. You know, after all these experiences with the program, I did drink again. Yeah. I wasn't done.
Right.
Yeah.
That seems to be a lot of our story.
Yeah. I like appreciate that part because it shares with people who are struggling that you can still make it.
So how old were you when you took the whole thing and decided this is what I'm going to try to do?
My last drink, I remember I was at my 17th birthday. Um, you know, when I got out of the psych ward in October, that was. I did not. Let me rephrase that. I did not get out in October. I went in October. But yeah, when did I take the whole thing? It's relative for me because those first 8 years, I had gotten so far in the steps, but not all the way,
Mm.
and really encountered other issues, just in regards to like the recession or, you know, being a teen from a dysfunctional family, getting that GED and not really being able to go to Job Corps, just struggling. I went to the mission when I turned 18. Like I left home, and it's hard to sort of, I think, before cell phones, you know, have a constant contact with the sponsor unless they're going to be at that meeting.
What mission is this?
Everett Gospel.
Okay.
Women's.
All right.
Yeah, they're still there.
Was that like a residential program and a job training and
It was
school?
mainly residential. No, it didn't really wrap around jobs, but they did have the resources, I think, for clothing, for interviews and whatnot. I didn't know at that point what I was going to do for jobs.
You were pretty young.
Real young, did not want to work at McDonald's. So I started working at Labor Ready.
Okay.
I really put those boots on and showed up at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning.
Physical work.
Yeah, and I rarely got jobs in the beginning because
Right.
you know, maybe a moving job or something they think a woman can do, but it was an interesting crowd. But yeah, that first year I didn't really work at all. And the mission was neat because it got me linked up with a youth program in Skagit County. And though that didn't produce exactly the results I wanted, um, I did link up with more program people. Had a terrible experience, had a great experience, and then calamity hit again. And so, like, my first 5 years, that first 8 years, a lot of just like surviving life on life's terms without the program.
So, like in that time, were you working the steps with a sponsor or not?
No, it was honestly my brother who carried me through because I had several unsavory experiences with sponsors.
Okay.
Like three or four. One or so that just didn't work out. Another, she got drunk around my 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
I really intended to do the program the whole time, and I think that's probably what saved me. Was that I intended on doing it. It just seemed like it was always slipping through my fingers.
So, what was it like when you found the sponsor that could really help you sequentially work the steps?
Yeah, that well, I had an interesting experience in the end, but I really enjoyed having her in my life. I wasn't ready for it. It scared me. Um, she was involved in general service, and we related on that because though I wasn't working the steps, I was still working the program. You know,
Mm-hmm.
doing what I could until that person appears, and so um, she was speaking my language, and then she offered me the steps, and it did free me. I was able to actually get honest about my experience, and at that time, not a lot of people were asking me my experience. So it was like pretty groundbreaking to be able to tell her where I came from, the books I had stole from AA. She made me like buy them from the thrift store and return them, and I made amends. I finally had made some actual amends that wasn't just on God's terms.
Yeah. My experience, I was afraid of the steps because I had seen people where it changed their lives. And I did not want to let go of my crutches. And again, it took me years to have that willingness to trust that this was actually going to work if I let it work. And what is it like now for you? What are you doing now?
Now I'm like way more mature and way more able to really kind of, yeah, like just relax and um find depth in step work and in letting go.
Hmm.
I held on to so much for so long, just hold on to my seat for so long, and now I'm 19 years sober, and like I gotta learn to relax and enjoy it through the program. And so I mean, I'm working on things like adulting things and just taking lines of the prayers and just sort of like trying to let those into my life because I'm kind of in this nature of like, let me gobble it all up. Let me do it right now, all of it right now. And it hasn't worked. It's just added to the fire. So I'm doing it a little differently.
Now, what is your, I know you're volunteering here at Greater Seattle Intergroup of AA. What else do you do to further your program?
Program wise, I've done many things currently. Uh, Sponsoring a few women, um, secretarying a meeting. I just let go of a literature service position. I work at a treatment center right now for the first time for pregnant and parenting women. It's not part of my program per se, but it's definitely my program in action. And it shows me that, wow, this program has really changed me and made me a force for good. I can really support these women confidently without shame because that field is pretty serious, and it doesn't phase me thanks to Alcoholics Anonymous. Like I'm able to give really good care because of what AA has taught me about the different um, kind of features of like empathy towards sick people and just how deeply I can work my own forgiveness in my life and just hold that space for people while they're working on finding that. Yeah.
It's all about me.
No.
How many? What's your meeting attendance like? Especially since we've come through this like 2 year period with
Yeah.
the COVID.
It's been up and down all through the pandemic. I actually was one of those people who did more meetings in the pandemic than prior. But it's right now, it's pretty steady. I mean, the last few weeks I've been to several meetings a day. Not a day, a week. Several meetings a week on many days in succession. Yeah, I'm excited about being back in person. Really excited. I have a strange schedule, so
Hmm.
it's crazy. Like I'm trying to make do. So yeah, I think I still hit a lot of Zoom meetings. I did Zoom during the pandemic.
Zoom really helped me.
Yeah.
Any last comments you want to just say on this?
Yeah, I had no idea I was doing this. I feel railroaded, and I hope it serves the purpose, and I hope you got anything out of
Yeah,
this.
I love hearing people share their stories.
If
When
I
do
knew you were going to share, I'd ask you some questions.
what are the kind of things that you need help with now?
Personally, Well, what I've always needed as a young person in AA is a bit more accountability, a bit more pressure, not as much, praise and excitement for that because I found a lot of people. It's so funny. I felt like such a burden, and I needed people to try and reach me, and that is what happened ultimately. But right now, I'm still working on several of those like insecurities. Just coming through the pandemic with like weight gain and just like the struggle. I mean, it's like then that means my program isn't that fresh. It doesn't feel as fresh, and I'm not able to kind of walk as light, literally, but even just spiritually. And so yeah, just a lot of like imposter syndrome and just feeling like scared for the program. Like I've seen the fellowship change, and I try not to make ultimate judgments about whether it's shrank or it's grown. I try not to go there mentally because I really will not know, but I have a sense of it, and I've been scared on and off about that.
You're scared for AA's survival.
Yeah, like just like it's so funny. I really blocked it out throughout most of the pandemic. It's just how many meetings did not put signs on their doors. How many meetings are still empty
Right.
and there's no sign on that door. And that was something I never encountered in my whole sobriety. There's always been somebody there.
Super.
So yeah, I think there's a lot of new opportunities for service.
All right. Well, thank you,
You're welcome.
Desiree, or Desi. I like to call. I like Desi.
Thanks,
And I
John.
will share this with you